It's great love that came out to meet you. Of his great love that's been coming through. Of his great love that's been coming out to entreat you. Of his love that's been coming through. Can be your love or my love. Can be his love or her love.
Shalom, I am Rabbi Shaul Praver. You're watching Rabbi Rock. Once again, we have here today the journalist and novelist Nidra Poller. Such a pleasure to have a writer of your magnitude here with us in the studio.
It's a pleasure for me to be here, sincerely.
Shalom. Yeah, let me clarify. We're talking about the Middle East. We're talking
Yes.
about countries like Saudi Arabia. We're talking about Yemen. This whole vast territory there that once upon a time was not Arabic. You had all kinds of people. You had Berbers, you had Jews, you had Christians.
Right, we're talking about India. We're talking about Byzantium. We're talking about the
Hindu,
whole
yeah.
antique world. The Greek,
Okay.
what was left of the antiquity
Right.
was destroyed by the jihad conquest.
So if I understand you correctly, if we want to talk about European colonization of different countries, North Africa, Morocco, etc., then let's talk about the colonization also, or the total conquest of the Middle East.
Ah, absolutely. We have to. That we cannot. Look, I was a major in history at the University of
Yes.
Wisconsin. I have a passion for learning, and I didn't learn until the year 2000 anything about the jihad conquest.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And absolutely, it has to be learned. And you know, people over history do all kinds of bad things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm American, so I come from a country that liberated itself from European colonization. So I can feel, sometimes I do feel a bit superior to Europeans. And when they're talking, you know, trashing America because they're pretending that we're an empire and that we went to war in Iraq to have this imperial ambitions, and it's all baloney. And I'm thinking, well, you know, we didn't have colonies.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I say McDonald's, it's not empire. You won't want to. You don't have to go to McDonald's. Nobody's forcing you. You don't have to watch Hollywood movies. You don't have to read the books.
Mm-hmm.
It's things that appeal to people, and every country tries to push its culture for whatever advantage that gives. So, whatever colonization, it was bad and it was good. Colonization liberated the Jews from in all the Arab countries.
Mm-hmm.
So. A lot of people say, oh, we got along so well in North Africa with the Muslims. Well, that's because they had been liberated by the French. And unless they had grandparents who told them about the Dimitride suffering, some of them didn't know or don't want to know.
Mm-hmm. So this whole story of nearly 1 million Jews being thrown out of different countries, whether it's Morocco, Tunisia, or Yemen, or whatever the country might be in that area, is a story that is not well known.
Yes, and it's being told today, but there are the films by Pierre Rohov and the film that was made by the David Project about the Mizrahi refugees.
Yes, I've seen both. Very important.
Very important, very moving. And of course, I mean, I know a lot of those refugees. I have many friends in France who are Jews from North Africa who left as young adults and had all the hardships that they had when they came to France. And now they might have to leave again.
I spoke once about a year ago with Walid Shubat, an ex-terrorist, and he assessed that the overwhelming majority of Muslims are fun-loving people. Do you agree?
You know, it's immaterial. And one of the things that's very difficult is to realize that we only have so much time in a day to think and act, and we have to have priorities. And if we fill our minds with things that are totally useless in the situation we're living in, we'll never get around to the important things. It doesn't matter if the majority of Muslims are fun-loving people. They are not allowed to have fun in their countries. And that creates a lot of problems for the rest of the world. I hear people say, oh, so Islam is a young religion, and oh, look what the Christians did, and what the Jews would have done if they had more power to do it, and they're going to change, but right now they're in the Middle Ages.
Yes.
Right? So somebody can say that to you and feel like they've kind of settled the problem.
Yes.
And I say, well, you can't take into your country nearly a majority of people who are in the Middle Ages. If that's the truth about Islam, I don't believe it. Everybody's in the time they're born in. But if that were true, well, then they would have to stay in their countries and have nothing to do with us and go through their changes and then come and see what kind of relationship we could have. But that's very demeaning to Muslims to think that. Wherever, you know, the problem is coming from, they have to deal with it. They have to deal with it. We can talk about it, but they have to deal with it. And the way they deal with it is if we say, stop. It stops here. Now that's your problem.
Okay. 1 in 20 people in France is a Muslim. And the demographics show that that population group will grow a lot faster than the non-Muslims in France. France is an important bastion of Western culture, whether it's the Louvre, whether it's Voltaire, whatever
or it's
we
nuclear
go.
weapons.
It's an important part of the formation of our Western society. You are still optimistic. Why?
Because that's my nature. And because I can't sit back and let things happen. So I have to act. And if I act, I have to believe that I can do something.
Okay.
Because I'm not a fatalist. I think my Jewish learning tells me that we decide on the future. I resist anything that tells me that something has to happen and I can't do anything about it. It's no favor to Muslims and to Europeans and to Americans and to Asians. It's no favor to anyone. There's no need. People talk about diversity and then they're going to have Europe become, again, part of the Arab world. Why? Those countries were liberal. If colonization was bad and they got their independence, well, why don't they want to live in their country? Why do they want to live in Europe?
Okay. I understand that your basic disposition is optimistic, but you've thought deeply about these issues. What is your logical reason for being optimistic?
Oh, my logical reason is that I'm realistic. I will constantly look at the facts, and I will constantly write in function of the facts, and I will act in terms of the facts. So I can be optimistic on the bottom line, as you say in English, in knowing that I can leave. If it doesn't go the way, right?
Yeah.
If it doesn't go the way I think, if France doesn't defend itself and remain France,
I see.
okay?
So you're optimistic about your own
then I can leave, but until then, I will work in terms of believing that things can change and that people can recognize their own interests, and people who recognize their own interests can come together and act on it. But I mean, I can say that in terms of our Jewish community, of America, of any place. I'm a very free person, and I want to live. So I'm always going to try to make the decision. I'll do everything to help any place I am, and then I can always try to make the decision to continue to live and to defend my ideas and values.
All right.
Because
Okay.
that's
so
how
you're
form my life.
positive-minded, but it doesn't sound like you're optimistic
Well,
about
I can't, no, but
France.
there are other ways to handle this. You don't have to round people up and throw them out. You change the orientation of your country. You assert yourself again and say, this is my country. If you want to, some European countries are doing that. Denmark, Holland, after bitter experience. And then you're going to read somewhere that they've become extreme rightist and it's just terrible and they're racist. No, they said, wait a minute. This is Denmark. You want to live in Denmark? Here are our values.
Yes.
If you don't respect them, don't come.
So democracy is not just a popularity contest. Democracy is a form of government that has a certain set of values that
Yes.
are enduring,
The same as an individual.
regardless of the votes.
An individual who doesn't have some kind of identity, who is porous to everything, is not an individual who can stand up. So a country has to say, this is my country. I say, if the French, seeing what I said here today, if they said they don't want me, I'm American, I'm not French. If they said they don't want me, I wouldn't burn down a school. I would
Yes.
leave. I would leave. That's their right, that's their country.